When you hear bipolar disorder, you probably don't think about Revenge of the Nerds. You don't picture the awkward, brilliant underdog who made an entire generation feel seen. But behind Louis Skolnick, behind the laughter, was Robert Carradine, a man fighting a battle most of us never knew about. And when news broke about his cause of death, it shocked fans across 2 generations. Because the truth is, bipolar disorder doesn't always look like suffering. Sometimes it looks charismatic. Sometimes it looks successful. Sometimes it looks like the funniest person in the room. Today, we're going to talk about what really happened, what bipolar disorder actually is, and why this story matters far beyond Hollywood. The face of Revenge of the Nerds was fighting a battle far more intense than anything on screen. When you hear bipolar disorder, you probably don't picture Louis Skolnick standing on that stage, finally claiming his moment. You picture statistics, headlines, clinical words. But behind the thick glasses and nervous brilliance of Revenge of the Nerds was Robert Carradine, a man who made millions feel seen while quietly struggling with something many of us still don't fully understand. This story isn't just about Hollywood. It isn't just about fame, and it's definitely not just about one tragic ending. It's about bipolar disorder. It's about what we see and what we don't. And it's about why the conversation we're having now should have started decades ago. If you grew up in the 80s, you know exactly what Revenge of the Nerds meant. Louis Skolnick wasn't just a character. He was every kid who felt awkward, every outsider, every person who thought they didn't belong. Then, years later, a completely different generation met Carradine again, this time as Sam McGuire, the warm, slightly clueless but loving dad in Lizzie McGuire. 2 eras. 2 audiences, one man who felt familiar, almost like family. But here's the part that hits differently. Behind decades of success, behind the humor, behind the steady career, Robert Carradine was living with bipolar disorder, diagnosed later in life after years of internal struggle. And when his family confirmed that he died by suicide at 71 after battling this illness, it forced a question we don't ask often enough. How many people who seem larger than life are fighting something invisible? Because bipolar disorder isn't moodiness. It isn't being dramatic. It isn't having ups and downs. It's a neurological condition defined by extreme mood shifts, from mania, where someone may feel euphoric, energized, even invincible, to depression so deep it feels like falling into a well with no ladder. The world often sees the manic side, the charisma, the creativity, the intensity. But the crash, that happens in silence. And that silence is where the danger lives. Carradine's family said they hope his story helps reduce the stigma around mental illness. Even in grief, they chose awareness. That alone tells you something powerful about who he was. Because this story isn't about scandal. It's about humanity. It's about recognizing that the people who made us laugh were human, that icons are human, that strength and suffering can exist in the same person at the same time. And maybe, just maybe, it's about learning to look a little closer at the people in our own lives, the ones who seem strong, the ones who always show up smiling, the ones who play the role of "I'm fine" perfectly. Some stories hit different, not because they're dramatic, but because they remind us that being human is complicated, and master being human is even harder.